Interrupting your programming right now because Governor Lamont is giving a coronavirus briefing ahead of the holiday weekend. Let's listen in.
Leading up to Black Friday, the busiest retail day of the year, just wanted to give you time to prepare and some of our thoughts about what happens over the next, few weeks. First off,
this is a special report from News 8.
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Carber.
Here with Josh and Paul and David Layman, since we're going to be talking a little bit about what we're doing with retail going forward. First, let me give you a little bit the COVID daily summary. I say that with some trepidation. Do you have that up there, Max? Let me do the daily summary first. What you see in these numbers is a couple of things. A lot of COVID cases, a lot of tests. We just got off with our unified command, which are all the department heads and those who are the front line dealing with COVID. What 1872 COVID cases means in terms of track and trace, what that means in terms of making sure they have the community sports necessary to quarantine. It's getting stretched, but we're still on top. Positivity rate, as Josh would say, less than 6%, 5.99. Let's just say this, that the last few days have been in the fours. The average for the last week, sort of 5.5, 5.8. But you ought to know is the big picture, the trends going forward. I say that in particular when you look at hospitalizations and fatalities. 77 hospitalizations is probably the biggest increase by far that we've had since this second wave, since this surge. We've been averaging about 22 a day for the last week. Fatalities, again, we've 45 fatalities. That reflects the hospitalizations from a few weeks ago. We've been averaging, I think, about 15 a day. Let me just tell you, these numbers are important, but think broadly in terms of the trend lines of what they say. I mean, in Wall Street, they call it day traders. If you focus too much on day-to-day numbers and stocks, politicians looking at day-to-day polls, COVID looking at the day-to-day numbers. I look at this in terms of trend lines, what I see over the last few weeks, what I see in the coming few weeks. And we know that the next few weeks are going to be complicated. And let me tell you a little bit what we're going to be doing about that. Next slide, Max. We spent a lot of time. Look, we knew November is a tough month. We knew it started with a lot of people voting. We knew it was flu season. We knew that universities sending the kids home, thousands of kids coming back. We talked a fair amount about restaurants over the last, few weeks, doing everything we can to keep our restaurants going, keep them going safely. You can't order after 9:30, lights out at 10, what that means in terms of our municipalities being able to enforce that. We've had to, take away the liquor license in a couple of cases. But I think it gives you an idea of how hard as well our restaurants are doing everything they can to stay open safely. You've seen the plexiglass and some of the other ways that we keep below capacity and keep people distance. I say that as a lead up to many retailers are offering safe shopping as well. Black Friday is the day we've traditionally thought about as the kickoff to, holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah shopping. And often you've thought about, hey, let's be there at 6 a.m. in the morning, be the first one in line, get that $129 flat screen TV. Well, our retailers are doing everything we can in a place where we have a 5.5%, 6% COVID infection rate to operate safely, keep you safe, and make sure you have options. So when it comes to, quote, Black Friday, it's going to extend for a week. It's going to extend for a few weeks. No need to crash the line at 6 a.m. in the morning. You can reserve a time. There are a variety of options there as well, so you can get a time. Otherwise, they'll be socially distanced so that you can wait in line before you go into that retail store. It's worth noting that a lot of the sales that used to get just in-store are also now available online. it's really worth noting that online shopping, you can shop local. And you can shop local on time. Support your local stores. Support your local restaurants any way you can. I think it's ctvisit.com will give you a listing of a lot of our most interesting retail stores as well as restaurants, places you can order online. You can have easy pickup outside like we were before. So there's an inside option and an outside option as well. Housekeeping and security support and enforce guidelines. I really appreciate that, especially for the bigger stores, especially for the malls. It's so important that we trace this. Make sure that in a very serious way you keep the social distancing. You make sure people are wearing the mask. You make sure they're 6 feet apart. Make sure that if you're getting crowded inside, you limit the number of entryways into your store. Or give people an opportunity to wait outside in a distanced way. That's how we can operate our stores safely. I will tell you that the vast majority of our restaurants are operating safely and following the protocols, for which I'm very thankful. And you'll probably be able to tell the ones that aren't if you're going by, and probably you don't want to go in there anyway. And when it comes to retail, I'd say the vast majority are following these protocols as well. And for those that aren't, and we do get a notice, you give us a heads up, we get a call, or the local public health gets a call, or the fire marshal comes over. They usually give a friendly warning to those, smaller operators that aren't paying attention. If there are people who are defiant and refuse to wear the mask, they can be subject to a $100 fine. And for those bigger operators who aren't operating safely, as of, tomorrow at 12:01 a.m., you will be subject to a $10,000 fine. We're doing that not just to keep your patrons safe, those around you, but to make sure we can do everything we can to keep your stores open, during this amazing shopping holiday season, and to do it safely. Next chart, Max. We just wanted to give a little thanks to folks who are doing amazing things in this time as we lead up to Thanksgiving. Those are, teachers, those are nurses, those are food service workers, those that are doing the testing. That's what we're trying to remind people of. As you probably know, we have Step Up Connecticut. That's going pretty well. 6,000 people have gone to the site so far. Hundreds are signing up. Now we have to allocate your skill set to the jobs that are out there. And we're working on that right now, doing everything we can to make sure we can amplify our capacity when it comes to testing, making sure we can back up teachers who have to quarantine when it comes to schools, and making sure more broadly volunteers are out there for our not-for-profits going forward and what that means for people. I'm also really pleased in terms of a giving that our Connecticut Alert App is doing really well. We have close to 750,000 of you have signed up for it. I think that makes us far and away the most per capita in the country, for which is just amazing. As you know, you can get that on your Android device or your Apple device. Apple, you do it off the settings. Even I could do it. What's important to know is it's totally anonymous. So if you've been in contact with somebody tested positive, you'll be noticed. If you test positive, we will notice you. But you may have to input a code that allows us permission to notice others that you've been in contact with. Some people are a little hesitant to input that code. And again, remember, it's totally anonymous. They won't know it's you, but they will know that they've been in contact with somebody, and they should quarantine and test to make sure they're safe as well. That's what this app is all about. This is what expands our capacity for track and trace in a period where we have now thousands of infections on a daily basis. And finally, in the chart, and then I'd really like to open it up, is you guys have been incredibly generous. It's not just Step Up Connecticut, but it's the thousands of donations to our food banks and Food Share and Salvation Army and United Way, getting food out to people, the thousands of turkeys that are available. I know you at your home, small social gatherings, smaller turkeys this time around, but also what you're doing to allow others in need during a time of great food distress to be able to, survive and enjoy a small gathering with their family as well. And that's what these food boxes are all about. And I was just on the call with our directors a few minutes ago, and Vanessa over at DCF just pointed out something that just really made me think. We're doing everything virtually these days. We're even doing virtual adoptions. And I think it was last week was adoption day. And 25 young Connecticut kids were adopted by parents who are going to take them in, doing that virtually. This is how this is why I give thanks for the state of Connecticut and the amazing people here. So with that, Max, David, Josh, Paul, we're ready to take any questions you may have.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Sorry about that. Happy Thanksgiving, Governor. I've had a chance to speak to some restaurant owners, and nobody wants to be fined. And as you know, they've taken a big hit. Some feel that businesses who are doing all of these things and spending money at a time when they just don't have it, there should be either rewarded or incentivized. And is it the right plan to start fining businesses at this time?
Well, here's the incentive, Sue. We have states where restaurants are closing and not allowed to open, in different parts of the country right now. And that's not Connecticut. David Lamon's working closely with the Restaurant Association almost on a daily basis, doing everything we can to keep them open safely. And as we said before, you're right. They've invested a lot of money in terms of, plastic partitions, 6-foot spacing, 50% occupancy. But if there are a few outliers, they will be held accountable.
I also wanted to follow up on the unemployment numbers. More than 1 million people have filed for unemployment, and I know that benefits are expected to run out in mid-December, and the federal extended benefits are not coming to Connecticut because of the fact that the feds consider us to have a lower unemployment rate than we actually do. They believe it's around 6%, but it's really, according to Department of Labor, around 11%. Not getting those benefits will hurt a lot of people who still are out of work.
Well, let me start with that, and then maybe one of you guys can step in. But it's really important that the feds step up and extend the unemployment so nothing runs out at the end of a 3-month period or December 31st. Kurt Westby, let's say he's doing yeoman's work over DOL. They've been pretty busy at Department of Labor. We're now able to extend benefits to those who are earning as little as $100 a week. There's an awful lot of people that are left off of the numbers from the feds, and we're trying to do everything we can to power through. And I think we ought to hear something from the feds within the next couple of months, but I've been saying that for a couple of months.
And I guess finally, quickly, Pennsylvania has decided to not allow liquor sales on Thanksgiving night. That's a big bar night, as you know. A lot of students are home. Is that something that Connecticut would consider, or do you think that's going too far?
Well, remember, we haven't had our bars open in 8 or 9 months, unlike Pennsylvania and a few other places. So I think we don't have to do that. I think when it comes to restaurants, you can still get a drink there, and I think the package stores can be open safely.
Thank you, Governor, and I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving.
Right back at you.
NBC Connecticut.
Hi, piggybacking on the first question, I'm wondering where all of this fine money goes. As you're aware, the nursing homes, when they pay a fine, a portion of that goes back to compliant nursing homes so they can purchase things for visitations. Would you entertain the idea of creating some sort of a grant to help some of these businesses as they try to weather this pandemic?
Sounds like a good idea to me, but David, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it is a good idea. And I think from my perspective, we're open to ideas on that front. As the governor mentioned, the idea with the fines is to make sure that we have compliance from businesses and that the bad actors don't ruin it for the good actors. We want to keep businesses open and keep our economy and schools open. So hopefully there are not many of these fines given out. But if we have bad actors, it's important that the fines are given out and that behavior is changed in the state. But any and all ideas, please send them my way into the governor's office and we'll consider it.
So far, where has the fine money gone?
So far, there's not been significant fine money. This is the first meaningful change and increase in the fines that will be given out.
And then secondly, some of the businesses we spoke to said they couldn't afford a $10,000 fine. They realized that you're not out to get them. It's more the bad actors. But if they missed something or someone in their store or restaurant wasn't compliant, they're worried about being put out of business because of one fine. Will there be a series of warnings first before they were fined $10,000?
Sure, Governor, you want me to jump in here?
Sure.
I think, we've been in a phase really for 7 months now or 6 months since reopening where, we have been giving a lot of warnings out. And I think the intent of the $10,000 fines is really for, gross violations of the gathering size limits as well as the capacity limits in the state. So, the intent is not to give these fines out. We want businesses to be compliant, and we'd like nothing more than 100% compliance. But a lot of warnings have been given out. But if there's still people that are non-compliant, they should expect these fines to be a real possibility.
Thank you.
News 8.
Hi, Governor. It's Jody Latina. My question is about the fining as well. The local health directors are responsible for actually going to the establishment and doing the fining. Is there enough manpower out there?
Hey, Jody. Look, some are using local public health, some are using fire marshals, some are using, municipal police and others. Again, in many cases, especially the smaller towns, the local merchant. You probably know her by name. Maybe you're in the Chamber of Commerce. There, it's usually a friendly reminder, and usually that's what it takes. But some of the bigger operators, some of the chains, those folks may be a little less receptive to local input and local warnings. Now they have a warning from the state that it could be expensive if they don't follow the protocols.
And I'll also add, Governor, the other thing is we also added as part of the executive order yesterday, giving the Department of Public Health similar authorities as well to provide support to these local public health directors and local municipalities and such. The governor convened a large group of municipality leaders yesterday before this new executive order went out, and we heard loud and clear from them that compliance is important. And the one thing the state of Connecticut wants to show that we're all in this together. And if we're going to be all compliant, we all have to do it together. And so the additional support the Department of Public Health will provide through the governor's executive order will further support the local officials as well.
As a follow-up, is this the compromise to not rolling back some of the communities to a phase 1 as they had requested?
This is the way we can avoid having to close down. We're trying to show that over the next couple of weeks, we can bend the curve. We can operate retail safely. We can operate, restaurants safely within the hours. And that's why it's really important that we get this right now, because the alternative is rolling back. You're right, Jody.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
News 12 Connecticut.
Hi, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving, Governor.
John.
Quickly, you kind of touched on this a minute ago, but who are you thinking is really going to be subject to these $10,000 fines? I mean, is this really aimed at like the large malls and the chain restaurants? Can you guys sort of talk about that?
Yeah, we're not differentiating, but I think you're right. We said, hey, how about a $500 fine? And people said maybe for those big guys, that's like a cost of doing business, and they'll just power through. We wanted something for those bigger enterprises that maybe are not paying attention to the protocols or following some national rules instead of our state rules, that they've got to pay attention, have a number that they will respond to. That's how we came up with 10,000.
I don't know, just ballpark figure, how many places do you think you're going to actually slap with a fine that big? I would imagine it can't be that many.
John, I think it's very few. As you know, even on our $100 mask, it's, what is it, a dozen? It's not a big number. We're not sitting there penalizing people. We're making people aware and alert and know there are consequences. Thank God in Connecticut, I'd say 99% of the people are self-regulating.
So, and last question, if I'm a mall operator and I'm really trying to do the right thing for Black Friday and the coming weeks, what are you guys' best suggestions for, I guess, best practices?
Why don't you take that, David?
Yeah, John, thanks for the question. And as the governor mentioned, I've been in regular dialogue with our restaurant industry, our grocers, as well as our retail industry. And I think Black Friday and really this whole shopping season is going to be different this year than previous years. You're going to continue to see more internet shopping, as you have seen, but the options to shop and shop local, importantly, continue to increase. So, for example, you're going to see not just a Black Friday sale, but you're going to see a Black Friday week sale or over the month. You're going to see mall operators and other big box retailers, as well as some of the smaller ones, have additional staff on hand to make sure that if there is a queue and make sure the capacity continues to be maintained. You're also going to see a lot of options to buy online with curbside pickup, in-car delivery or same-day delivery to your house. So you're really seeing the retailers adapt very quickly. So however anyone wants to shop, they can do it, and they can do it safely, whether that's to their house, in their car, or a more traditional retail experience. Our best advice to the retail operators is be vigilant. We want to keep you open, as the governor mentioned, but we need everyone to embrace these protocols and make sure that the capacity restrictions are strictly followed.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
You too, John.
WTIC 1080 News. Fox 61. Fox 61. Connecticut Public Media.
Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving. I know, Governor, on Monday you said that police are not going to be going door to door checking, or don't advise them to see if there's a large group of people. But just wondering how local departments should handle, if they get a complaint from a neighbor that there's 20 cars parked outside of so-and-so's house. How should departments respond to that? Do they get a warning? Do they wait until people disperse?
Well, that's local jurisdiction, but yeah, when you see a bunch of cars piled up, you hear the loud music going on, you see it's probably not 10 close family members sitting around a table. I would go in there and say, this is inappropriate. Put yourself at risk, your family at risk, your neighbors at risk, and everybody you're in contact at risk over the next period of time. If somebody is defiant and doesn't really want to follow the rules, then you do have a right to levy a fine.
The Connecticut Mirror.
Thanks, Max. Governor, I just had two questions. One, I just want to make sure I get this straight. The fine right now for not wearing a mask is $100?
There's a fine, $100 if you're not wearing a mask in a commercial establishment, indoor facility that's open to the public. Absolutely.
Okay. And Governor, Scott Dolch from the Restaurant Association put out a statement saying that if we're going to have fines as high as $10,000, it would be nice if the state was doing more to assist businesses economically. You had a bridge loan program at the start of the pandemic that maxed out in 48 hours. That wasn't really open that long, and it only met about 1/4 of all the requests. You've tried to expand the outreach on the shared work program, but how do you respond to their argument that we should be doing more with state resources to help Connecticut businesses?
Everybody wants more help with state resources. I appreciate that. Right now, the best thing I can do for the restaurants is to allow them to stay open as long as they can stay open safely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
The Hartford Current.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to clarify something, Governor. You said at one point that the 45 new deaths were from the last few weeks, if I heard you right. Could you just...
No, that was no. Those are numbers from yesterday.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Well, so do we have any idea why? 45 deaths in one day, that's quite a large amount. Is there any speculation? Is that lumpy data, or is that really that 4 times more people died in the last 24 hours as opposed to...
I would tell you it's lumpy data, but Josh can give you a better answer.
Yeah, I think that's right, Alex. There's nothing unique to point to there. As you know, there's often the deaths are the data does sometimes take a while to come in through the medical examiner and the various hospitals and so forth. So I wouldn't read too much into that one-day spike. Look at as the governor said earlier, look at the trend lines and the averages for the best read of how things are trending.
Mm-hmm. And then also, I know with a lot of these measures that you guys have taken, the idea has been try to do this and something more drastic. So I'm wondering what the timeline is on something like these fines. Like, how long does it take to figure out whether this kind of action has been sufficient in curtailing, the spread?
Well, Alex, as you know, I mean, the number one metric I'm looking at is hospitalizations. Make sure we have capacity, make sure we have nurses and people, make sure we have ICU beds. And if we found that we're getting very close, we had to do something more restrictive, that would be what would determine for me.
And so with hospitalizations, so we got to about 2,000 in the spring. I mean, are you looking at like we can afford to get to 2,000 again, or is that like an acceptable outcome in the next few months, or where is that line where it is like no longer okay that we have this many people hospitalized?
Well, we're watching ICU beds, and there's less demand on ICU beds this time than last time. We're looking at hospital beds, and as you know, and we've described, you can start expanding capacity. Josh told me they started adding field hospitals in Rhode Island already, so there is some need there. And finally, it's people and making sure we have the nurses and docs necessary to be able to deal with this. Right now, we can see the trend line, and while you take one-day variables out of the mix, you can see a sort of consistent trend, and we continue to ratchet up the pressure, see what we can do to bend that curve.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good holiday.
You too, Alex.
Hearst, Connecticut Media.
Hey, Governor. I wanted to follow up on staffing and PPE at nursing homes specifically. Has TPH seen any issues there? I know I got in touch with the union earlier, and they said N95s are kind of hard to find right now.
We just got a shipment of N95s in, but Josh, do you know what the status is in our stockpile?
Yeah, no, the stockpile, the state stockpile is full. We've exceeded our 90-day goals on all the key commodities. We are aware that, certain facilities, nursing homes and others, they're responsible for procuring their own PPE. Sometimes for a variety of reasons they could fall behind, and then we're there to step in. So there could be isolated cases where that may be true, but certainly not true pervasively. And with regards to staffing, our team at the Department of Public Health is monitoring that on a daily basis. Occasionally, there can be issues. And in extreme cases, you saw at the Three Rivers Nursing Home where there were, structural significant problems, we will step in and take drastic action if it's necessary. So the team at DPH is all over this and watching the data at every one of these homes very carefully and stepping in where they need to. But there's no issues on PPE at this time.
Thanks. And then, Governor, you said that the $10,000 fine is sort of a way to avoid rolling back to phase one. But after the holidays, is there a hard line on hospitalizations where you would consider rolling back to phase one? And what is that figure if you have it?
I think if we found that there were a lot of violations in terms of restaurants and retail, and we were not able to operate them safely, but more importantly, if I heard from the leading hospital executives that we're getting close.
Thank you, and happy holidays.
You too.
The Waterbury Republican American.
Thanks. I'd just like to clarify something. Governor, did you say earlier that there have been a dozen fines for failing to wear a face mask and a mask in public?
Yeah, I don't think I have an exact number on that, Paul, but I said that to show we're not out there handing out a lot of fines. We're really out there sending a signal loud and clear that you should be wearing that fine, and these are what the rules are. And if there is somebody who's defiant and purposely says, I'm not going to wear the mask, those guys have been subject to fines, and I think it's no more than a dozen. Maybe one of you guys have better numbers than that.
Well, I'd be interested in the numbers because your office told me last week that there is no tracking on the state level of these local enforcement actions. Is there?
I think that's a fair point, Paul. I think it's up to the local jurisdiction who's doing it. So probably my evidence is anecdotal.
A few minutes ago, Paul Mounds mentioned the executive order and how the Department of Public Health can help out local health departments. But actually what the order says is that the Commissioner of Public Health can step in to enforce all reopening regulations and other related state laws and regulations if local officials are not effectively enforcing those mandates, laws, and regulations. So can you give us a little more background on why that step is necessary?
Yeah.
Well, we've always been there to back up the local any chance we can. But Paul, do you want to run with that?
Yeah, I think the comment I made is still current and valid, Paul. But with that said, as the governor says, the Department of Public Health is always there to serve as a resource to the local public health directors. We have public health directors who represent multiple towns. Every one of them are not just like Hartford, New Haven, or New Britain, where they have public health directors that represent one municipality. Many of them don't even have police forces. They utilize whether it's resident troopers or such. We thought this was an important aspect. If we're going to raise these fines to this level to send a loud message, the state needs to be there side by side with the public health directors and all the enforcing bodies to support them. So, yeah, you're right. That's what the order says. Expand upon that, we will, to support our local municipalities to enforce the rules and keeps people safe.
Yes, but you're already doing, or you have been doing what you have just outlined. This order goes a step beyond. It says, if you don't enforce, we will, correct?
What the order says, as we've said before, is that we will support them. So there are many public health directors who have reached out to the state of Connecticut asking for additional support. And this allows us to be able to do it. So, yeah, that's what the order says. And we look forward to continuing to be a partner with our local health directors and our local municipalities. As I stated before, as the governor led a call with all the with many municipality leaders, including CC and Cost, to discuss directly about this potential expansion to support them.
And David, could you tell us how many complaints DECD has received regarding non-compliance by businesses?
So on average, Paul, it's been between roughly 300 a week and 500 a week into the state's 211 routing portal. That is not all the complaints that we've gotten, and that's across all businesses, and that could be from employees and customers. But that's been around the average. More recently, it's been closer to the 500 mark, and the most likely complaint that we hear is business not enforcing mask wearing or business not enforcing social distancing.
And Governor, today the election results in Connecticut were certified. Wondering if you have any thoughts on that particular development, considering what's happening nationally. And also, it looks like about 665,000 or so people voted by absentee ballots, and the rejection rate was basically half of what it usually is in a presidential election rate. I think it's been 2% in the last few presidential cycles, and it was just under 1% this year. So any thoughts on that?
Thought number one, Paul, is that especially during a period of COVID, I'm really glad people voted absentee. I think it went off very well. I think people appreciated the opportunity to be able to vote absentee. I think it kept our long lines down to some degree on what would have been a very, very busy election day. And I think we ought to learn some lessons about that going forward and hear legislature's point of view on extending this to other elections. And I think the election happened. It was November 3rd. Now it's a few weeks later. It seems to me that there's a slow transition of power that's beginning to take place on a peaceful basis, something this country's done pretty well for, well over 225 years. And I look forward to that happening. We're here talking about COVID. It's really important. As we got the vaccines coming out, as you probably heard, we're going to get tens of thousands of our share of the Pfizer vaccines this coming month. And as we put in place the protocols and how we get that distributed and how we track that, support from a federal continuum from the COVID task force is really important. That's why this transition is so key to get it right.
All right. Well, thanks very much. And everybody have a safe and enjoyable holiday.
You too.
CT News Junkie.
Thanks, Max. Hi, everybody. Governor, you talked to a lot of these businesses and retailers, restaurants, and I don't think anyone's making excuses for the bad actors out there. But I think a lot of them may see this new $10,000 fine as maybe unhelpful messaging as they're trying to sort of convince consumers that their operations are safe this season. Is that a concern that maybe you guys weighed as you planned this announcement of this new fine, this whether or not it was, as you said, most of these retailers are probably doing it as you want, right?
I think the message is we take your public health and safety very seriously as a state. The restaurants take it very seriously as a restaurant association in this case. And we are self-policing. The restaurants are self-policing. And if there are bad actors, there will be consequences. And that's one way we're able to keep our restaurants open.
Okay. Getting back to something.
Sorry, Governor, if I may here, I actually think the messaging is slightly different. It's done safely with the state's reopening protocols. We think eating indoors, we think shopping indoors is safe. We just want to make sure that it's taken that the proprietors are taking it very carefully. 8 months into this pandemic, there's a bit of fatigue, but done with the safeguards the state has, we think it is safe. We just want to make sure that bad actors don't continue to, cause unnecessary spread, because that's ruining for all citizens of the state and folks that are doing it the right way. So we think this is a pro-business message for those that are taking the protocol seriously.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, thank you. Getting back to something Paul brought up, the face mask fines. I know that this is probably going to be a very small number fiscally, but these fines, I think, eventually go to the general fund, the state general fund, right? So is there going to be a point where we, as the state, have a number on this?
So that the general fund is the default. That's correct. But there was a question earlier, if there were other ideas on if there was a meaningful amount of money as a result of these fines, and we still don't know that that'll be the case. We hope not. We hope there's compliance, but we're open to ideas. But if it does go to the general fund and the number gets significant, we'll certainly make sure that this group and the public is aware of the total fines that are given.
Okay, thank you. And maybe this was asked already, but do we have, what's the 7-day average for percentage infection rate?
Is that about, 5.6%?
5.5.
5.5.
Okay. One last thing, Governor, how are you planning on spending Thanksgiving? Are you making a turkey? What are your plans here?
Well, I'm here at home. I've got my 3 kids, 1 fiance, and 1 wife. And it's going to be us sitting around the table with a smaller turkey, and a little different than what our usual Thanksgiving is. I'm sure that's true of each and every one of you, but I still treasure the day and doing it safely.
All right. Thank you. And happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
The Associated Press.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Governor or Commissioner Lamont, do you have projections on how this latest COVID surge is going to affect small businesses? And are there plans to use any state funds based on those projections if Washington doesn't act?
Well, I'll start on that. I mean, most of the modeling we have seen keeps getting pushed off. We had hoped probably by December we'd be cresting on the backside of the second wave. I think most of the numbers we're looking at now suggest that could be mid, even late January. Thank goodness we have a $3 billion rainy day fund. I can't use that to bail everybody out. But we can do is make sure that when it comes to testing, when it comes to the vaccinations, when it comes to public health, we can't wait for the federal government. We got to make sure we have our preparations in place and we can get those vaccines out to people on a safe basis. And we're not going to wait for the U.S. Senate to get their act together.
Does that mean there are no plans to use any of the rainy day fund money to help small businesses in the state?
Well, as you know, with the CARES Act money, we've done tens of millions of there for landlords. We've done it for small business. We've got the $5,000 grants that $5,000 grants that are going out to at least 10,000 businesses. So we've done a lot with the federal money that we receive that is CARES related and has to be put to work by the end of December. For our own internal resources, which is the rainy day money, I'm really focused on public health. And that's a bridge until we get that money, I think, reimbursed by the feds a little later.
Yeah, Governor, it's David. I would just add to Dave's question. Economic projections in the time of COVID are an inherently risky proposition. They're risky in normal times, but COVID's been very unpredictable. So we look at a lot of the current economic indicators in terms of activity, but making projections in the future, there's just a lot of uncertainty around that. So it is tough to do that with great accuracy. As the governor mentioned, though, at DCD, we are finalizing the $50 million small business grant program, where we expect to give 10,000 small businesses a $5,000 grant, as well as a program to help performing arts in the state of Connecticut for $9 million. So we're constantly talking to businesses. We understand that need is there, and that need is growing, and we're going to do what we can within the resources we have, and we'll maintain that dialogue. So we're going to keep at it here.
Thank you, and have a good holiday.
Thanks. You too.
And finally, Fox 61.
Hey, good afternoon, Governor, David, and everybody. This is Tony Terzi. Just wanted to follow up on the $10,000 fine that is out there. Talking to Maritza Bond, the health director in New Haven, she said that she and her task force have had encounters with Walmart, stern encounters on a couple of occasions. Do you have that Walmart in New Haven on Fox and Boulevard on your radar? And are there other similar big box type stores on your radar already?
Why don't you take that, David?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for the question, Tony. On my radar specifically, no, but I certainly will follow up with my counterpart in public health and at the local level. But most of the enforcement and a lot of the knowledge in terms of where some of these problems are is at the local level, which is why the enforcement's there. And I think, again, 8 months into the pandemic here, there's a pretty good sense of where some of these problems are at the local level. And now we're trying to provide more tools to be helpful on enforcing and making sure that we do have the compliance that we need.
And with regard to compliance, as you all have heard, in Oregon, the governor has essentially encouraged folks to rat out, if you will, their neighbors who are holding gatherings larger than 6 people. And those folks, according to an executive order there, would be subject to hefty fines and maybe even 30 days in jail. Would you subscribe to this sort of approach, Governor, or anybody on the dais, if you will, today, about having residents calling local authorities, health department on their neighbors?
Well, the way you asked the question, I'm not recommending you sit around ratting out your neighbors. But let's face it, if there are 50 cars piled up outside, there's a loud party. If you want to give us a notice to the local police and say, I think this is risky behavior and probably not following, our health rules, I think that's a good thing to do. But right now, no, we're not urging people to do something like that.
Okay. And finally, with regard to some of the smaller fines, I just wanted to clarify. It's a $100 fine for mask violations and for businesses who have overcapacity, if you will. For instance, grocery stores over 50% capacity, that could be $500. Is that correct?
It's David. That's actually.
I think the $500 was more oriented towards those large private gatherings. But David, do you want to take that?
No, that's exactly right, Governor. $100 is for not mask wearing, not distancing in a place of business, or if you're very close when you need to be wearing a mask outside of it. The $500 is for the gatherings. If you're arranging a non-compliant gathering, that's where that fine comes in. That's not a business fine.
Thank you for the clarification, and have a happy and safe holiday weekend.
You too, Tony.
No more questions.
Well, let me just say on behalf of Max and David and Josh and Paul and our team, we wish you the very best for this Thanksgiving season. And when it comes to remembering people, remember those who know that COVID doesn't take the day off for Thanksgiving. And those are nurses, and those are food service, and those are folks taking care of those in need. There are a lot of people that we owe thanks to who are stepping up in this incredible time of need. And for that, I am very thankful, and I hope you are as well. And be safe. Talk to you soon.